my AFC teams, Jacksonville is one of the best AFC teams
I know.
record wise
Yeah.
right now. They're one of the
Yeah.
best AFC teams,
Yep.
and while they're one of the best with an asterisk, and I say with an
Yeah.
asterisk because they've they've beat some good teams,
Sure.
but they haven't beat the good
No.
teams. They
No. No.
haven't even looked competitive
No.
against the loss. That loss to the Raiders, I mean not the Raiders, the to 49ers
Mm-hmm.
was
Oh
so
man.
bad. Like it was just,
Yeah.
and so that loss alone makes me put an asterisk next to him because
Yeah. Well.
I'm just not so sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That game and even the first game that they played against the Texans, that was like week 3. They
Mhm.
got destroyed by 20 points to them. And like you said, I mean, they play in a weak division other than the Texans, and nobody expected the Texans to be any good this year, you know. But they play in a weak division. They haven't really. They've beaten the Bills, but the Bills are beatable. They played the Saints, they played the Steelers, and beaten all those teams. They play the Titans twice a year. They play the Colts twice a year. The Colts are a train wreck right now. Um, and yeah, even Trevor Lawrence said, you know, he's a little upset that the Texans are so good and CJ Stroud is so good because he doesn't like and that's the two mentalities that you get because Trevor Lawrence said that. I thought that was kind of interesting. He's like, yeah, I'd rather not have any competition because I just wanted to go to the playoffs. And then I heard Mike McDaniels talking, and he said, if you look at the teams that are successful in the playoffs, they play in competitive divisions. And you've got 2 or 3 teams going to the playoffs in those divisions. So you've been tested throughout the season. You know, if you play in a weak division and you go to the playoffs and the teams that you play are good teams, you don't know what you're doing because you haven't played any decent football this year. You know, you haven't played against any decent teams. So I mean, that was a pretty telling statement from Trevor Lawrence. Um, but yeah, that's going to be an exciting rivalry for probably 10 years. The fact that those two are in the same division, you don't see that very often. That's going to be really fun. It's almost like you know, Jim Kelly and Dan Marino played against each other, you know, in
Oh yeah.
that AFC East, you know, back in the day.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's fun football right there. I'm looking forward to them too. And just like you, I mean, CJ Stroud has been so much fun to watch. And you know, just living in Texas for 20 years, it's cool to see a team that gets some attention other than the Cowboys, you know.
Right, and it was mentioned, like you said, that the teams that go to the playoffs with
Yeah,
easy divisions don't succeed.
they don't do well. Yeah,
Cowboy fans are going to hate me,
yeah.
but that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
why when they get to the playoffs, it's an issue. And you look
Yeah,
back, even
yeah,
look back when we won the Super Bowl, we had to compete hard in that division.
yeah.
We had Seattle, Arizona
San
was good that
Francisco.
year.
Yeah, all
I know
4
they
teams
dropped
were.
off, but
Mm-hmm.
every team in that division was hard. It was hard fought. And San Francisco was we had been losing to San Francisco
Mm-hmm.
year after year after year up
Yeah,
until in the playoffs when it counted. But that's my biggest issue with Cowboys.
yeah, yeah.
They haven't been in the discussion. I mean, because it's about narratives. So
Sure.
last week it's like, oh, well, look who the Cowboys have played, right?
Yeah,
And none of the teams that they beat have a winning record. None of them
exactly. I
have a
was gonna say
winning
that
record,
they played like
right?
3 teams with a winning record, and they've lost all 3 of those games.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
So when you look at that, you have and we're jumping from the AFC to the NFC real quick, but
yeah.
you have Philly, San Francisco, and
Mm-hmm.
then Detroit. But like you said, Detroit's a little bit shaky.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at that, even with Philly and San Francisco alone, I don't Dallas can't beat either one of those teams.
Yeah, I don't think they can beat Detroit either.
You might be right.
Yeah,
I just And Cowboy fans, I love to rag on them because here's my thing with Cowboy fans is every year they feel like this is
is
the
our
this
year.
is it. This is the one, right? And it's been that same thing since the 90s, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's been 26 years, whatever,
Well,
you know?
the self-anointed America's team. Yeah, it's just, and you wish that every franchise would have fans that felt that way. That said,
Yeah,
this is our year. We're the best team. We're America's team. All that other stuff. Because if you look at the Texans, for instance, they played against the Jaguars this past weekend, and they didn't even sell out their freaking home game, man.
I know. Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
you got Dallas on one end, who is suspicious, and you've
Right.
got the Texans, who are really exciting right now and causing a buzz. The whole NFL's talking about C.J. Stroud and that Texans football team,
And
and
still.
then nobody's coming to the game.
And their
And
tickets are
it's
way cheaper in Houston than they are in Dallas.
exactly, and you're in Houston, which is like the third biggest city in America. Why
Yeah.
is no one going to these games? Maybe it was a Thanksgiving thing. There shouldn't be an excuse for that. You know,
Right.
that's why the Oilers moved to Nashville,
Yeah.
because nobody was
Fan
going to the
base.
game and the fan base wasn't supporting them. You've got
Right.
Nashville, which is a tenth the size of Houston, and they're selling out every game.
Game. Yeah.
So, don't complain to me when the Texans move to Oklahoma City or something like that,
Yeah.
because you've got a good thing going there. You've got a young quarterback that's going to be good for 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
bar injury. So you need to start going to your football games. That's
Supporting.
crazy. Yeah, you
Yeah.
need to start supporting your quarterback the way that the Cowboys do.